Hi everybody! So today I'm going to teach you how to make a nice cone necklace. I like to call it a cone necklace. Some people call it other things. The reason I call it a cone necklace is because what we like to use is cones for this. So I have two sets of cones here. In your package you will find one set of cones. So a set of cones consists of two. And what you can see here is there's a smaller end and a larger end. The smaller end is always going to be at the ends of your necklace, where your beads are going to be coming from these larger sections here. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to use these smaller cones, and all you need is two. With the smaller cones, you will also need your clasp to open and close your necklace. It could be like this. I'm not sure, I haven't seen your packages that were made. There could be many other types of packages that have different, they could have the twist on, that two portions twist together, or it could just be similar to this one here, where you just slide down this lock here, and that opens up the necklace there. Okay, then we also have some O-rings here. So I have quite a few. I've gone ahead and I've opened two of them already, right here, and I've left two closed. We need them open so that we can attach them to our clasps. So I will show you how to do that. You will also need a needle, two sets of pliers. You may only need one, and any type of beads. I'm sure that they've sent you a package of beads with your kit as well. So what I'm going to start by doing is I'm going to take my clasp and I'm going to attach one of these O-rings to my clasp, and that's where we're going to start. I'm going to try and get this as focused as possible. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here for you. So let's just see. So here it is nice and completely sealed. Not sure if this is coming in too clear for you. I hope it is. And I'm going to take one set of pliers, put it on one side of the O-ring, take my second set of pliers and put it on the other side. And what I'll just do is just pull, and you don't really need that much of an opening because all you're going to be doing is putting your clasp in there. So as you can see there, I do have a little bit of an opening here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my clasp, I'm just going to slide it through here, so now it is attached, as you can see here, and I'm going to take my pliers again. I'll put one on one side and one on the other, and I'm just going to press that together. Sometimes it doesn't close right away, so what you do want to do is you want to hold a set of pliers on here to make it nice and straight so that they're flush together, and you can take your other set of pliers and you just want to put it on the outside of your O-ring, so that way you can, you want to move your clasp so it's not in the way, so you just want to press it together firmly on the outside of this. And while you do that, you'll notice that you've created this nice seal here, where you're not really going to have any issues with this. It's nice and tight together. There's no way that your thread is going to come through this. So once that's done, we'll put that down. That is ready to go. You are now going to take your thread, which has already come in the package. You may have two portions of thread in there because this is quite a number of strands of beads that we're going to have. And let me just get you started by saying you are not going to be tying a knot in your thread once it is on your needle. You will take your needle, and I'm sure you've done this many a times. You're just going to put your thread through the needle. Oh, and I'm just going to miss a bunch of times. Bear with me. I'm feeling a little pressure here. And you're just going to pull it through. You're going to leave a tail. Could be this long, could be shorter. It's however comfortable you feel that your tail is going to be, but you're not going to tie this end at all. Now what you're going to do is just leave that. Take your clasp and your end of the thread that does not have your needle on it, and we're going to tie that onto the O-ring that has our clasp. So I'm just going to leave about this much. I'm just going to do a regular knot. You want to tie quite a few knots, so that way you don't risk this coming off, which is great, right? You want to make sure that your necklace stays on here. And as you can see there, it fell right through my secured end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it through again, but I'm going to avoid that section. What you want to do is maybe put the clasp on that portion there, so that way that kind of weighs it down. And you're just going to tie 3 or 4 knots. 1, 2. The more knots you tie, the more secure this is going to be onto your O-ring. And once we have that done, we're just going to leave this. We're not going to cut this piece of thread off yet. We're just going to leave it on here. And what I like to do, most people have just a regular tape at home, is I take this whole end here, my clasp, my thread, and I will just tape this down onto the surface because I like for it to stay stable. I don't really like the movement of my end of my necklace moving around, so I'll just tape it down. You can do this, you don't have to. And so from here, what we're going to do is we're going to take our cone, and as I said earlier, you want this small hole here to be the end of your necklace. So you don't want any beads coming from this. You want your clasp and O-ring to meet up with this. So you're going to take your needle and thread, and you're just going to place it through the cone here. It's going to come out the larger end, and that's fine. So now you can just drop it, and yet again, there is so much thread, you're just going to slide it, and this is what it will look like. What we're going to do now is we're just going to start to bead. So I'm going to put this into fast motion here because it's simply what I'm doing right now is I'm just doing a solid pink. So there's no sort of pattern or anything in what I'm doing, and I'm just going to be stringing along my beads. And what you want to do is you want to string about, say, 16 inches of just beadwork onto your string. And let's start here. All right, so once you have your 16 inches or so on, you're going to do now is you're going to now go into your cone reverse. So I'm going to enter through the larger end and exit through the small end. And I'm doing this because I want all the strands of the beads to be collected into this larger portion here. And it's going to just look something along the lines of this. So that's what it'll look like inside there. Because I'm using a smaller cone, it will fit less strands. But the bigger cone you have, the more strands you can fit into this. So once that's on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my closed O-rings, and I'm just going to tie a knot. Same as I did on the beginning. And what you can do as well is, I'm not sure if they're going to have it pre-done for you or not, but because you possibly want to give a little bit of give to your clasp at the end, is you can connect a couple of the O-rings together to create a little bit of a chain to give you that leeway. So you're just going to take your cone and you're just going to tie a knot onto your O-ring. There's not really any difficulty with this, as long as you make sure that you don't get your beads caught up in the knot. And when you do this, you also want to make sure that you are tying your knot as close to this cone as possible. The further away it is, the more of a opening you're going to have, a gap, let's say, between your cone and the beads. So the closer you can get it, the better. And same thing here that we did on the beginning. Just this time you have your needle, is you want to tie a couple knots as well. Once you have those knots nice and secured there, you are good to go for your next strand. So I'm just going to do one more knot here, And we're just going to tie it. Perfect. So you can see now I have two ends that come through the cones, and they're coming through the larger ends. And I'm going to be starting back up with this end of my cone that just has the O-ring on it. So I'm going to take my thread that is still attached to here. As long as you feel you have enough thread on here, what you're going to do is you're just going to take your needle and you're going to come back through this cone. You're going to go in through the small end. Just be mindful that you do have beads in here, so you want to try and press it against the cone and come right back out the larger end. So that's just going to start your next row. So you have your O-ring, you have your cone on here on the end, and you have your thread coming through where the beads come through. So what you're going to do now is, if you wanted to, you can open this tape up, you can stick it right on there, so then that way you just have everything secured, or you could just leave it and just let it dangle like that, and you're just going to start on your next row of beads. So on my next row of beads, I'm just going to continue with the same idea here. We're just adding the beads one by one, and I haven't chosen a specific pattern or anything like that, so it's just going to be solid beads. Okay, so once we've got our 16 inches, as you can see, I have some extra beads on here. That's okay. Not every strand is going to be the same length. Some strands will be smaller, some strands will be a little bit longer. So what we are going to do is I take my clasp off of the tape here, pardon my hands, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my needle, go in through the large side, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are hugging the side. So let me get this into focus here. As you take your needle, push it down, and you're going to go all the way through until you come out the other end, and just continue to pull that through. That is going to create your second strand. And we're going to do the exact same thing here that we did with the first one, is we're now going to tie it onto this loop again. So on purpose, what I've done is I've made sure that I do not have enough thread to do a third strand. So we'll just go on through here. And you want to be aware that you want to make sure you are tying this tight, because the looser you leave this, the more your beads are going to fall, and you're going to end up with string being visible. So you don't want that. You want to pull your string as tight as possible through the cone. And I suggest I hold it with my middle finger and my ring finger, so that I can hold with my thumb and my pointer finger the clasp. So I'll just go through that loop there and come in between the two, pardon this string. I've created a loop around my ring finger, and I'm just going to take my needle and go straight through the middle there. Let me just show you, straight through the middle here, and that's going to create that knot again around my O-ring. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I still have that tight yet again, and just loosen your finger a bit, and you're still going to continue to pull that tighter and tighter, because you want your knot to match up similar to the same area where your first knot is. So once we've got that there, you're just going to do the same thing over again. I also like to go around just the knots. I'm not going to go around the O-ring, and I just want to tie that securely just so that it holds the knot there as well. So I'll pull through and put my needle through here, create that hold on the actual thread itself, and tie it. Now I've noticed that my beads are not going to budge, but I want to continue to tie a couple more knots onto the O-ring itself. Okay, Once you've completed that, you are just going to grab another piece of your thread, right? Because there are multiple pieces of thread that came with your kit. Because with these rings, we can't guarantee that we're going to you know, have enough thread with one long thread, and with the longer thread you pose the risk of creating a actual knot in the middle of your thread. So the more extra pieces of thread you have, the better. So there we go. We've got that all tied on there. What you can do now is you can cut off this piece because it's just too long. We're not going to be able to do anything with it. It's long, but it's not long enough to create a third strand. So I will take my next piece, which is about the width of your arms. Could be a little bit longer, could be a little bit shorter. You're then again going to tie this on, and you can do the same thing. You can tie it directly onto the loop here, which I'm going to do. And oh, I knocked my beads, don't worry there. Just a basic knot, nothing special. I don't know any specialty knots or anything like that, so just your basic loop with the thread through it. And you're going to do that a couple times yet again, and we will leave this strand on here again just for the moment. So once we have that thread on there, you just want to pull it closer to the rest of the remaining knots that you have, okay? So it is not going to look very pleasant at the end, but also nobody really sees this portion of your necklace, okay? So, and yet again, that end of that thread, what we're going to do is we're going to take our thread, that new piece that we just tied on there, and we are just going to put it through our needle hole. So just the same as the first, you're not tying this new thread that's going through your needle again, sorry, you're just going to leave your little tail here. It's nice if you put a crease in it, it tends to try to stay. So if you have that crease in there, that's great. Then you're going to come back to your cone where you just tied it. You're going to go in through the small end, and you want to press against your cone, and you want to go straight through, and you're going to just pull that thread all the way through. And once that's done, you can now start on your third strand of beads. And same thing here, I'm just going to take my tape again, and I'm just going to tie this down. What you can do now is you have these extra threads, you can just tape those threads down nice and hold. And we're just going to start back up with the beads. So you want to do about the same amount here. There's no special technique here, you're just putting beads onto your needle and sliding them through. The best thing about this is you can actually use this same technique to create earrings. Your earrings could be a loop, they could be a straight down. It's quite a similar technique, except on your earrings you're not actually going to have your clasp. You'll just have your earring stud or your loop that you're going to pull through onto. Something that is similar, but also just as effective. And the best thing about this is you can make matching sets no problem, because this is such an easier technique. You can do 5 strands on an earring, you could do 3 strands, you could do layered strands where you have them all at different lengths. You can do different colors, you can make amazing patterns for them. There's so many options when you do the earrings. And it is similar with the necklace. I've just went with a solid color. What I'm going to actually do is, if you are having a pattern, what you want to do Okay, so once you're ready to do your third strand, you're going to do the exact same thing here, and you're going to go in through your larger part of your cone and out through the small. Just remember when you're doing this, you want this to be on your O-ring that is just by itself. You don't want your clasp on this. So you're just going to slide that through, and just be mindful to make pressure against the cone, so that way that is where you are going. You're not going to be going through any of the beads that are inside that cone. So here we go again. We have put our third strand of beads through our cone here, and we still have our needle onto our, our thread onto our needle, and we're just going to do the same thing here. You want to pull your thread tight so you don't have any gaps like this of the thread. And same thing here, I like to hold it in between my ring finger and my middle finger, and hold my cone with my pointer and my thumb. So what I'll do here first is I'm actually going to tie around the knots that are already on my O-ring. That is just to pretty much stabilize the beads in the cone itself. So I will go all the way around and come up through my piece of thread that I have held between my fingers. Just remember, you just want to continue to hold that tight, and the thread will get smaller and smaller. Do not let that thread go. You do not want it to be loose. Keep pulling, and you want to pull until you are nice and tight, and see, we have no gaps there. So once that's done there, I will tie onto my O-ring a couple more times, 3 to be exact, just because I like to have the stability there. So there's 1, 2, and what you can do again is you can just go back through if you would like and tie again onto your thread here. But you don't have to. I find that tying onto the ring is perfectly fine. So we will go on. I'll do it just to show you yet again. So I go around the thread, put my thread that is on my ring, on my needle, just directly over top of my needle here. So now that is my knot. And you just pull it tight, and you can start on your fourth. So you can continue to do this. It's the same thing. Go in through your small end of your cone, come out through the larger portion, and then start on your beads. So I will do a 4th row here, and I will actually just finish off the 4th row, and then I will show you how to add more O-rings to this closing end. So you want to go back through your small end again. Just keep the pressure against the cone, so that way you know you are not going to go through any of the beads that are already on the other rings. And just pull it all the way through. And we are ready to start our 4th row. While this is all happening, do not worry if you are mixing up your rows, if they're getting tangled or anything like that. The more tangled it looks, the better. I don't like my necklace when I'm wearing it to just be straight. I do not want my necklace to sit on my neck like this. I don't mind. I think it looks better when it is just all twisted up, and I'll show you how we can do that at the end here, which is very simple as well. So let's just continue and let's finish our 4th row, and then I will show you the ending. Okay, so once we've finished and we've collected all of our beads for our 5th row, as you can see here, I've got it done. I'm just going to do the exact same thing, and I'm going to finish this. So what I like to do first is I will tape my string down, just so I can clean up my work area, and I'm going to get rid of all my extra beads. I'll just slide them off for now, just to make things a little bit faster for you. And as you can see here, of course it does not want to go through and follow. I'm just going to pull my string, hold my finger down on my beads, and as you can see here, my beads are starting to tighten up on my string. So I'll just continue to pull this until it is nice and tight, because somewhere along here it decided to loosen up. And it just does not. There we go. So yet again, you want to make sure you are nice and tight inside your cone on the finished end where you first started. And now I will take my tape away again. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my needle. I am going to grab my clasped cone. I'm going to slide my needle through the large end of my cone, and I'm going to make sure to press against my cone so that way I'm not going through any of the beads. Slide it through all the way until we are right inside, and I will hold my cone with my pointer and my thumb and put my thread between my middle finger and my index finger, my middle and my ring finger again. Here I will tie my knot around all of the thread. So I'll just put it through here. Oh, it does not want to cooperate with me today. So let's start that again. Hold these threads. Maybe that will be easier. So while I'm holding my clasp, I'm going to pull my thread through my middle finger and my ring finger, and I'm going to go around all of the threads on here. So I'll just go underneath and bring my needle right through. Make sure you do not get stuck on your beads like this. You don't want to do that because it'll just be a little bit of a headache. So slide your little loop up here, and you're going to pull, and you are going to pull and make sure that you continue to stay tight, because what you do not want is this. See how my beads have dropped? So if that happens, you're going to take your needle and you are just going to continue to tighten it. No. So while you have this tight, you're going to go around your loop, all the way around, and you're going to go in through this loop here. Just continue to make sure that your clasp stays above your loop and that you are holding your beads nice and tight. If you let go of these beads, you are going to drop them, and it's going to leave you with a large portion of your thread that you do not want to see. So while you're holding on to the thread to keep your beads nice and tight here, you are going to start pulling on your thread. Yes, it will become tight around your finger. That is okay. Slowly slip your finger out and pull it as tight as you can. And now you've created that seamless cone saving trick to keep your beads right on up here. So now what we're going to do yet again, which is the same that we did last time previously, is we are going to go back to our O-ring, and we're just going to continue to tie a couple knots here. So also in your package, Rebecca may have, you may have received some crazy glue. That is strictly for your purposes only. If you feel that you need to super glue your knots here, you go right ahead and you super glue them. It won't really cause anything. It's a great technique to hold your thread onto here, and just so that it's nice and secure, and then you don't have to worry even about your threads getting too close to the break of the O-ring and falling through. So you're just going to tie your knots. And then once you've actually physically glued this, if you want to, then you can go ahead and just cut off these strands. So I'm just going to continue to tie my knots. You don't need to keep your needle on at this point. Once you're completed, you can just take those off. And same thing here, you can tie them around the thread itself, or you can continue to tie around your O-ring. So I just do 3 or 4 here. This is my ending section, so I like to go on either side of my thread. So I'll start one on this side, and then I'll come onto this side and do a knot here as well, just to make sure that I'm not keeping it all in one spot, and it creates a nice little knot like that. So yes, again, it does not look pretty here right at this moment, but what we're going to do is we're just going to put a dab of crazy glue here, and let me just grab that so I can just have basic super glue here. What you're going to do is open it, and just remember, you just need a tiny drop. Try not to get this onto your fingers, and you're just going to expose the glue and just drop it right on there. What you can do as well is just flip that on over, so that way you get both sides of your thread. And make sure that you don't have your clasp in there, because you don't want it to look funny. You just want it to stay at the end here. So now you can leave this end to dry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to my small end here, where all of my threads are closed, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to expel some of the super glue onto here, and I'm just going to let that come on out, and then I will let that dry as well. Don't forget to put your cap back onto your super glue. It's stinky. Nobody wants to smell that. So we'll just let those dry. As those dry, I'm going to come back, because it's super glue and it dries super quick, and I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut off my extra thread here. If you have smaller scissors, go right ahead and get as close to your knots as possible. I don't right now. I'm using some of my daughter's scissors, and I'm just going to clip those off. There we go. So yes, there are still a few little ends. I will get some smaller scissors, and I will cut those little tiny pieces off. So now I'm just going to take my thread out of here, and what I'm going to show you is how we can add extra hoops to this end here. So because our necklace is done now, we're just going to leave it on the side here, and I'm just going to bring back in my rings. This can be done at the beginning of the necklace process, or you can do it at the end. I like to do it at the end just because I like to get my bead work done and then focus on the remainder after. So I'm just going to zoom in here, and I will bring these bad boys back into our little project. I'm going to take my first ring. One of my rings can stay closed. I don't like to add my rings directly onto my necklace, so I will leave one ring closed. Put that guy up here. And I'm going to leave a second ring closed, and I'm going to put that up there. I'm going to take a third ring, and now I'm going to use my pliers. I'm going to do what I did to add my clasp, where I take both pliers, and I'm just going to open and pull this apart. It doesn't need to be apart too big. As you can see here, it's maybe just the size of my pliers. And now I'm going to pick up both of those O-rings, and I'm going to place them on either side of the ring. Sorry, it's a little hard to try and show that. So I'll show one, and now let me grab these pliers, and I'm just going to add this onto the second side. So now it's a family of 3 rings on here, okay? I'm going to take this O-ring that is open, and I'm going to squish it together. Once I've squished it together, what I like to do yet again is take my flat-sided pliers and I'm going to place them on my O-ring to make these go even, and I'm going to squish it so now they should be flush, and I will place it to the closure again, and I'm going to go right on the tip and hold them together. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to take my second set of pliers and I'm going to open them as big as I can. Oh, just wanted to squish on out of here. And I'm just going to close this even tighter together. So what I will do is, you can, if you don't want to, you can just take your pliers and just squish it from side to side. I like to make sure that it's flush, so that way there's no snags. You tend not to get snags on clothing when it's closed nice and flush. And you just want to make sure that it is closed all the way, nice and tight. And when you're done, it should look something similar to this. So now I have a small little set of rings. And I will take my fourth ring. I'm going to open that up. You can use just your finger and the pliers, but your fingers sometimes slide, so it's not as easy to open these. I'm going to take the ring of 3, my little chain. I'm going to add this onto the O-ring I just opened, and on the opposite side, I'm going to take my necklace that just has the O-ring, no clasp, and I'm going to slide that through the opposite side. Now that I have that on there, I'm going to close up my ring. It's nice and tight. Now what I have is a small chain that gives me the option. I can add it to however far on this chain when I want to close my necklace. So if I just had this one ring here, that would leave me one option. Open my necklace and that's it. But when I make that small chain, which is very simple, I can add it to the very last one, I can add it to the second one, and it just gives it a little bit more length, which maybe you didn't add enough beads, maybe you need more than 16 inches on your length, maybe you wanted just your chain to be a lot longer. You can add more than 16 inches. I've seen 22, I've seen 24. There's just like, it's an endless amount of options you have there. What you can do now is, remember I said that I do not like my chains to be like this. So when you go to put on your necklace, all you do is you take both ends and you hold one steady, and your second end, all you do is you just continue to spin it, and as you spin it, your chain is going to get smaller, your necklace, sorry, but it is going to give you a curled, all twisted up, very beautiful, nice thick chain type necklace, and it will stay all one length, and it will look something along these lines.